Chapter 18. It's a fair old haul, from what might have been somewhere in North Wales to somewhere else entirely in the London area, and an expensive one, if you happen to be driving a 1958 Cadillac Eldorado, which does about 12 miles to the gallon. There are numerous routes you can take, and any one of them might well lead to adventure. In fact, on an epic journey, and with such a distance to travel, the possibilities are endless. Tuppe consulted the map.
Motorways, all the motoring way, he affirmed brightly. M54, M40, London.
Good. Cornelius grinned. We don't need any further complications.
Exactly. I've got those letters from the rucksack. Shall I read them out to you?
Please do. The more we know about all this before we confront Mr. London, the better.
Are you sitting comfortably?
I am.
Then I will begin.
The Cadillac sped on down the middle lane of the M54. Coming up behind and evidently enjoying life in the fast lane was an ancient black Volkswagen. It was all covered in spikes. Mrs. Murphy. The Campbell smiled sweetly. He was now seated on the family sofa, sipping tea. It was cold, but he didn't seem to notice. You have a lovely home here, Mrs. Murphy, but I see there's so much redevelopment going on in this area.
There was, but it's all stopped now.
The mother straightened a wondering bosom. It must be a worry to you, being in such an isolated and, dare I say, a vulnerable position here.
We get by. Would you care for a top-up, Mr.
Kobold, the Campbell replied. Arthur Kobold.
He's lying,
murmured the teapot.
Don't trust him, Bridie.
My dear Victor, Tuppe read.
Regarding our most recent telecommunication, I require the following items. 1 black London taxicab, new and in mint condition. 1 taxi driver's uniform, you know my size. 1 miner's helmet, also my size, full working condition. 200 yards of climbing rope, 200 yards of slow fuse, 10 cases of gunpowder, 1 box of matches. Spare no expense and purchase only the best. I shall expect delivery first thing tomorrow morning. Everything depends on this. Yours omnipotently, H. Rune, Perfect Master.
Is that it? Cornelius asked.
Tuppe turned over the letter. There's something scribbled on the back, in Victor Zenobia's handwriting, I think.
Go on then.
It says, "Up yours, fat boy."
A sentiment you no doubt share.
Well,
Tuppe shrugged.
Blimey, he continued. Look out, Cornelius.
The spiky Volkswagen roared by at speed, slowed suddenly and swerved in front of the Cadillac. Cornelius dragged the steering wheel to the left and applied the brake. Spikes glanced across the chrome bumperwork, raising showers of sparks. The Cadillac screeched to a halt in the slow lane. The Volkswagen sped away.
Don't stop here. There's the motorway. Put your foot down. Keep going.
That car tried to run us off the road. Tuppe's head appeared above the front seat. He glanced over his shoulder.
Get a move on. There are 3 lanes for lorries all coming this way.
Cornelius tried to restart the car, which had, somewhat inconveniently, stalled. Bother, said he. The oncoming lorries made dramatic full-bore cruise liner hootings.
Get out! Push it onto the hard shoulder. Hurry up!
I can't do that. It's too heavy. Let me have another go at starting it.
No, Cornelius! Get out! Jump!
3 lanes of lorries thundered forward, hooting mightily, but showing no sign of applying a little brake. Tuppe climbed onto the tall boy's head and tugged at his hair.
Jump, Cornelius!
Cornelius turned his head, with Tuppe clinging onto it. The wall of lorries rushed at him. He could see the faces of drivers and their hands flapping. Save yourself, Tuppe. Cornelius plucked the weeny man from his hair and hurled him towards a grassy knoll beyond the hard shoulder. Start, you bastard, he told the car. It didn't. Stuff you then. Cornelius made for the last-minute leap. His left trouser cuff caught upon the brake pedal and held him fast. The lorries were almost upon him. Cornelius fought to free himself. Help! Cried Cornelius Murphy. Somebody, help! Murr! Went the lorries, slowing not one jot. Tuppe struggled to his feet on the grassy knoll.
Cornelius!
He screamed, but as the lorries filled his vision. Murr! Went the lorries. In the front room of number 23 Moby Dick Terrace, Mrs. Murphy suddenly clutched at her heart and sank into an armchair.
Oh dear, she went. Do excuse me, Mr. Kobold. I've had a bit of a twinge.
Can I help you, dear lady? The Campbell set aside his teacup.
I'll be all right in a minute. Could you call my husband?
Your husband? Where is he? The Campbell got to his feet.
Out in the backyard. Oh, I do feel queer.
Leave it to me. I'll take care of everything. The Campbell patted Mrs. Murphy on the arm and left the front room. He closed the door gently upon her and slipped along the short corridor to the kitchen. Certain household items watched him with suspicion, but said nothing. Burp! 3 lanes of lorries continued on their way, as if the mashing to a pulp of the beautifully restored 1958 electric blue Cadillac Eldorado was absolutely nothing at all. Tuppe watched the lorries recede into the distance, still meeping their horns. He scrambled down from the grassy knoll and stumbled to the now deserted motorway. The lorries were gone, and so was the Cadillac. No trace of it remained, no mangled metal, shredded seat, or crumpled chrome. There was not even the hint of a broken body, automotive or human. There was nothing. Well, not altogether nothing. There was something. But it was something of a very curious aspect, and not the sort of something you see every day. Leading to this something were skid marks. Now these you do see every day, although rarely so crisp and sharp, and at such an exact right angle to the carriageway. It was the something into which these skid marks vanished that was really worthy of consideration. This something was big and black and vaguely coffin-shaped. It stood upon the hard shoulder like a great 3-dimensional shadow. Tuppe approached it with trepidation. He shuffled around it. He gave it a sniff. He dared a prodding finger. He backed away, baffled and bewildered. And finally he sat down on his bum and glared at the thing. It was big and black and vaguely coffin-shaped, and it stood upon the hard shoulder like the great 3-dimensional shadow that it was. And that was really all you could say about it. The weenie man put his elbows on his knees and cupped his chin in his hands. His bottom lip began to quiver, and a big tear welled up in his small right eye. Cornelius, Tuppe began to blubber. Cornelius, where are you? Mr. Murphy, where are you? The Campbell pushed open the back door and perused the garden. Birdies twittered from the washing line. A retired tomcat lazed upon the coal bunker, dreaming of Gloria Swanson. Runnerbeans crept imperceptibly up the trellis, and in an upturned flower pot on the top of a bamboo cane, an earwig wondered what it was really all about. Mr. Murphy, called the Campbell. Sounds issued from the daddy's shed. Singing. The Campbell cocked an ear. The final act from Gilbert and Sullivan's HMS Pinafore, surely. Mr. Murphy, said the Campbell. Hello. The singing ceased, and Murphy the elder stuck his head out of the shed window. Who's that? He wanted to know. Mr. Murphy. The Campbell stepped into the garden, closing the back door behind him. I have some money here for your son. Money? The daddy's head vanished from the window. It reappeared in the company of his body at the shed door. Cornelius told me you might go by. He said I was to accept the money on his behalf. Indeed. The Campbell inched along the garden path. Beneath his feet the crazy paving shifted uneasily, and above his head the birdies ceased to twitter. The daddy sensed a sudden chill in the air. The Campbell sidled past the coal bunker. In his feline dream, the retired Tom shrank in horror as Gloria Swanson pulled a gelding knife from her swimsuit and sprang upon him. When exactly are you expecting your son back, Mr. Murphy? The retired Tom awoke with a shriek. The Campbell glanced round at it. Nice wee pussy, he said, reaching a hand. The cat arched its back and hissed at him. We've a wrong on here right enough, the wheelbarrow whispered. The Campbell gave an easy shrug as the retired Tom backed away. Now, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, where have you gone? The Campbell squinted about the garden. The daddy was nowhere to be seen. The shed door was now firmly shut. Mr. Murphy, where are you?
Cornelius, where are you?
Tuppe blubbered at the roadside. I'm in here, the daddy called through the keyhole. I'm very busy for now. Can I leave the money on the coal bunker? I'll pass it on to my son. I think not. The Campbell approached the shed. The birdies winged it off to purchase new. The runnerbeans took a turn for the worse. Mr. Murphy, please come out. Sorry, too busy. My shed is in disarray. I have clearing up to do. No! The Campbell stamped a foot. The earwig in the flower pot had a heart attack. At once! Sorry, goodbye. Mr. Murphy, I really must insist. Oh, well, if you really must insist, then I suppose I have no choice. The shed door swung open and the daddy emerged, large, red-faced and tweedly suited. He now wore an ARP helmet on his hairless head and carried a stick of the stout variety. "Get off my land," he said. The Campbell eyed both stick and helmet. His piggy peepers narrowed. Sunlight glinted on the single lens of his spectacles. He raised his left hand. "Thus and so," said the Campbell. Skin extruded, the paper plate grew, the metaphysical pie took form, and the daddy watched it do so. "Well?" asked the Campbell. "Well what?" The daddy studied the smiting end of his stout stick. "Well, this, of course." The Campbell made menace with the pie. "Oh, that." The daddy shrugged. "What do you mean, oh, that? I have just conjured forth this pie, and all you have to say is, oh, that." "Well, it's not a very big pie, is it?" "Not very big." The Campbell was appalled. "But I can't—" "Conjured forth. Yes, I heard you. Somewhat archaic expression and hardly accurate. Listen, if conjuring forth is your métier, you want to get yourself a wand or a stick. Get a stout one, like mine." The Campbell growled a horrible growl, drew back his hand and hurled his pie at the daddy. Murphy the elder gripped his stick in both hands and swung it cricket bat fashion. He struck the hurtling pie a mighty blow and sent it sailing over the roof of the house. The Campbell turned to watch it go. His mouth fell open. "Sakes, yeah!" cried the daddy. "A lovely piece of batting there from the England captain, straight over the pavilion roof." "Well done, that man," went the wheelbarrow. The Campbell turned upon the daddy. He wasn't smiling. "You really shouldn't have done that," he snarled. "I'm afraid I really must ask you to leave now," said the daddy, "or I'll be forced to strike you on the head with my stick, repeatedly, if needs be." He raised the stick in question, that the Campbell might gauge its fighting weight. But, impressive though this was, the Campbell stood his ground. He knotted his fists and the knuckles became deathly white. Veins rose and throbbed upon his forehead, and had Cornelius been present, he would no doubt have observed that they reproduced a scale map of the Mortlake sewerage system with an accuracy which was little less than fearsome. I'll... The Campbell's baldy head began to bob up and down. His stocky frame shook violently. The daddy took a tightened hold on his stout stick. A passing sixth sense, which just chanced to be in the neighbourhood, informed him that something very unpleasant was about to occur. "No!" shouted the Campbell, in a voice so loud that it rattled the chimney pots, and quite put the fear of God into the otherwise atheistic watering can. "No, no, no!" The Campbell got a grip of himself and regained his composure, such as it was, in a quite astonishing fashion. He straightened his spectacles upon his nose and adjusted the cuffs of his dove-grey jacket. "Not now," he whispered. "Not now. I cannot spare myself on you. Perhaps later, when I have all that I require." "Excuse me," went the daddy. "Stuff you," said the Campbell. He lifted his hands and flung them wide. "Shazam!" "Pardon?" "See you later." The Campbell turned away. "You just stay put." "Stay put? Now just you see here." The daddy took a step forward and struck his head on an invisible barrier. "Ow!" he went on. The Campbell was making back to the house. "Hold on. Wait." The daddy put his hands to the unseeable barricade. The resistance was cold and glassy, unyielding. "Stop! Let me pass!" But the Campbell didn't hear him. The Campbell was entering number 23 Moby Dick Terrace. The Campbell closed the back door and the daddy was left all alone. "He sits you up like a kipper there," said the hoe. "You really should have seen that one coming." The daddy struck the invisible wall with his stout stick. It rang like a great church bell. "Bother," said the daddy. "Cornelius, where are you?" "I'm here," called the voice of Cornelius Murphy. "Cornelius? What? Where?" Tuppe jumped to his feet, and as he did so he noticed something rather alarming. Here he was, on this bright August day, but
I don't have a shadow.
Tuppe turned in circles like a dog chasing its own tail. "My shadow's gone. Where's it gone?" He danced about foolishly on the hard shoulder, but his shadow did not dance with him. "Tuppe, help! I'm all in the dark here."
"Cornelius, where are you?"
Tuppe ceased his dervish impersonations.
"You sound miles away."
"In here."
"In where?"
It was a very silly question, really, because it was surely obvious where Cornelius was.
"You're in there."
Tuppe gaped at the big black coffin-shaped blot and landscape.
"Come out."
The words were scarcely spoken before the deed was done. The big dark coffinish thing began to dissolve. Trailers, as of greasy black liquid, slid from it, became twisted streaks of moving darkness, which roared like mercury, then swept with a sudden lemming-like dash at Tuppe.
Oh, help, no!
The small fellow leapt about as the blackness engulfed him, then slipped like silk from his shoulders, dropped to the ground and congealed, became once more his own little shadow. Tuppe stared down at him.
Gosh,
said he. Cornelius blinked at him from the front seat of the Cadillac Eldorado, which had now emerged from the big black whatever it was. The car was unscathed. The skid marks led directly to its tyres. Some mighty force had dragged the Cadillac from the path of the oncoming lorries, had saved the bacon of Cornelius Murphy. Tuppe. Cornelius rubbed his eyes. I don't know how you did that, but I know that you did. Thanks very much indeed. Tuppe smiled.
Nice to see you back, he replied. Give us a grin then.
The telephone rang and Arthur Kobold answered it.
Put down that cake, Kobold,
said the voice on the line. Arthur Kobold put down the cake.
What have you to report?
As I predicted, Cornelius Murphy went to the monastery. I am reliably informed that he now has certain of the papers in his possession.
And you think he will bring these papers to you?
No, I do not. He will surely go straight on to find the last man on my list. Once he has all the papers, then he will come to me.
What makes you so sure of that?
When he knows the truth, he will come here, to the one person he can trust.
All well and good in theory, but our number one priority is the recapture of the deviant. He must stand trial for his crimes. If he remains at large in the outer world and discovers the whereabouts of the ocarina, we are all doomed.
Cornelius will lead him here. We will recapture him. Never fear.
That is good to know, said the voice on the line, because I have to inform you that you only have until 8 o'clock this evening to achieve this.
8 o'clock? But you said
8 this evening. The train of Trismegistus stands ready in the station. The boiler is stoked. The deviant must be recaptured today.
Yes, but... Slam went the phone at the other end of the line.
Bugger,
said Arthur Kobold. Bugger the time, and bugger the train, and bugger the deviant too. The deviant was washing his hands in the Murphy's kitchen sink. He dried them upon a patchwork tea towel, drew a glass of water from the tap, and returned with it to the front parlour. How are you feeling now? He asked the mother. Much better, thank you. Everything seems to have righted itself. She accepted the glass of water. I'm glad to hear you're feeling better. The Campbell reseated himself on the family sofa. It pains me greatly to see a beautiful woman in distress. Flatterer. The mother sipped her water. It tasted dreadful. She put the glass aside. Where's my husband? Out in his shed. Said he was too busy to bother with you. Typical. The mother smiled coyly at the Campbell. He's somewhat past his sell-by date, that one. But let's talk about you, Mr. Kobold. Publishing must be an interesting business. Have you ever met Geoffrey Archer? The Campbell shook his head. His wife, Doris. I bumped into her once at a young farmer's do in Borchester. Fascinating woman. She used to do this act where she stood on her head and put a bottle of creme de menthe. The Campbell leaned towards the mother and whispered gross details into her ear. Go on. The mother nodded. A bottle of creme de menthe. I've seen it done with a skinned rabbit in a colostomy bag, of course. Eh? Went the Campbell. And one time when I was in Tunisia, I went to this bar where the castrati used to perform, and there was this fellow who...
Cornelius, you're driving rather fast.
Tuppe clung to his seat. We have to get to London. If this Campbell, whatever he is always one step ahead of us, he could well be at Jack's place by now.
No,
Tuppe shook his head.
I've been thinking, he can't know where we're going next.
He has done before.
But that's because we've let him. Listen to me. You know it must have been the Campbell who put the voodoo model car under your seat, mustn't it?
I can't think who else it could have been.
And how did he know we'd be staying at the Holiday Inn?
Cornelius shrugged.
Because you let on to Mike the mechanic that we were going there, just like you told him we were going on to the monastery.
I did not.
You did too. Mike sold you the map. You asked directions.
And you think the Campbell followed us to Mike's?
And probably duffed him up. Mike spills the beans. The Campbell hoodoos the motor car and gets to the monastery first.
The evil sod.
Agreed, but we followed him back at the monastery. He doesn't know Jack's address. We wouldn't have known it if my uncle hadn't just happened to have been working on Jack's karaoke machine.
You're right. Cornelius bounced up and down in the driving seat. The Campbell can't possibly know.
So slow down a bit, will you?
Of course. Cornelius slowed down a bit.
Thank you.
Tuppe lay back and watched the sky slide past. He felt reasonably certain that the Campbell didn't know Jack's address, but he felt equally sure that, by fair means or foul, he had probably gleaned that of Cornelius from the auctioneer in Sheila Nagy. And so they travelled south. They passed through Birmingham, a city notable only, in Tuppe's opinion, for the excellence of its independent science fiction bookshop Andromeda, hit the M40 and headed on down. The journey was without further incident, which might have been the product of happy chance, but it was more likely something to do with urging on the plot. And, at a little after 4:30 of the sunny afternoon clock, they found themselves on the outskirts of Penge, which, as those in the know, is a very nice place, although Tuppe and Cornelius had never been there before. Sunnyside Road was living up to its name, a row of pleasantly appointed 1930s villas, divided by well-tended hedges and sheltered beneath redly tiled roofs. Lawn sprinklers sprinkled, pigeons cooed, a small girl skipped, all was normality and reason. At the end of the road, the Cadillac Eldorado stood out like a great sore electric blue thumb. "It's not what I expected," said Cornelius Murphy. "It's oh so—"
"I think safe is the word you're looking for."
"Which house do you think belongs to Jack?" Tuppe turned up the label on the karaoke's crate.
"Number 11, the Laurels. Drive on a bit."
Cornelius drove on a bit and stopped outside number 11. It was just the same as all the rest. Lawn, flowers, a stone no more to, peaceful, normal, safe.
"Are you feeling as uncomfortable as I am?"
Tuppe asked. Cornelius nodded. "It's as if we're trespassing. We don't belong in a place like this."
"Go and knock on the door. Let's get it over with."
Cornelius flattened down his hair. Net curtains were twitching around and about. The small girl had taken her skipping rope inside. "All right, let's get it done." Cornelius climbed from the car. He closed the door quietly and picked up the crate from the back seat. He sniffed the air. It smelt wholesome. It smelt safe. Cornelius Murphy approached the Laurels. He opened the sunray gate, walked up a short gravel path, and stood before the front door. Its upper portion displayed a stained glass representation of a laurel tree. Cornelius pressed the doorbell. Bing bong it went. Cornelius waited, but no one came. So he waited again. A ladybird tottered about the rim of a polished milk bottle which stood on the doorstep. Cornelius observed that it had 5 spots on its back, and these formed the configuration of Cassiopeia. Cornelius pressed the doorbell again. Bing bong went the bell once more, but still no one came. He glanced around at Tuppe, who made an encouraging face. The finger of Murphy was just snaking out for a 3rd time when the door opened a crack. "Not today, thank you," came a voice from within. "Delivery," Cornelius replied, pointing to the crate. "Not here. You want next door." "No, it's here I want." Cornelius peeped in. The pinched face of an anxious-looking woman peeped out. Cornelius caught the fragrance of sandalwood talcum powder and a glimpse of leopard-skin leotard. He put his foot firmly in the door. "Good day," he said, smiling bravely. "I assume that the beautiful young woman I'm addressing must be the daughter of Jack London, Esquire. This is the right address, isn't it? I have a crate here for your father. Are you expecting him home soon? I wonder if I might just step inside and wait for him. What a very charming leotard you're almost wearing. Did you bag it yourself?" "Take your foot from my door, or I'll set my dog on you." Cornelius turned to offer Tuppe another shrug, and saw to his astonishment that a crowd had gathered, as if by magic, around the Cadillac. "Ouch!" he cried, as the front door slammed violently against his foot. "No. Please let me explain. I have to speak to Jack London." "I don't want you to explain. He's moved. Go away." "Oh, come on." Cornelius bing-bonged the bell. His shoulder was now against the door. "Princey!" called a voice from within. "Bad man at the door. Princey, rip his foot off. That's my good boy." Cornelius withdrew his foot in haste, and the door banged shut. The tall boy laid down the karaoke crate, paused a moment to compose his thoughts, then knelt low and pushed open the letter flap. "Will you please give me Jack London's new address?" "No, I will not." "It really is a matter of some urgency. I deeply regret this, but if you don't give me the address, I shall be forced to march up and down outside your house, weeping and wailing and proclaiming at the top of my voice that I'm your guilty toy boy. Hardly an original ploy, I grant you, but it should cause a reasonable stir in a neighbourhood like this, don't you think?" There was a moment of silence, then the rattling of the security chain, then the yanking open of the front door. The sunlight did not favour the woman in the leopard skin leotard. Cornelius noticed that she bore an uncanny resemblance to the gaunt woman who ran the kiosk on Edinburgh Station. He wondered if perhaps they might be related. "Now just you listen to me," the leopard lady of the laurels glared up at her tormentor. She drew back her bony shoulders, bringing a pair of soggy-looking breasts into undeserved prominence. "I'm going to say this only the one time." Cornelius observed that the visible area of bosom cleavage closely resembled the floodplain of the Indus Valley during a period of severe drought, as viewed from an orbiting weather satellite. "I told all those weirdos," went the woman. "I told the bearded guru in the pink Rolls Royce. I told the groupies and the good time Charlies. I told the bongo players and the scrapers of washboards. I told the stilt walkers, the dog-faced boys and the alligator girls. I even told Zippy the freaking pinhead. And now I'm telling you, Jack London does not live here anymore. He's moved, gone away. Got it?" "I see." Cornelius nodded thoughtfully. His hair didn't bother. "You get quite a lot of people asking then?" "No," said the woman. "But you just said." "That was years ago." The leopard lady counted on a freckled claw. 30 years to be precise. I have a very long memory. 30 years ago. Jack London moved 30 years ago. "That's what I just said. My memory is virtually photographic, and I never forget a face." She stared into that of the Murphy, "especially when describing it to the police." "I am certain, then, Mr. London's new address will still be fresh in your mind. The sooner I could have it, the sooner I could be on my way. I am in such a hurry. You know how it is." The woman sighed and let down her bosoms. The Indus Valley became Utah salt flats. "If I give you the address, you promise to go away and never return." "I swear by all the gods of light and darkness." Cornelius made an appropriately sacred sign. The woman eyed him up and down. "Another weirdo," was her conclusion. "Wait here, in silence, and I'll write it down for you." The door crashed shut. Cornelius turned once more to view the crowd. It was composed of fresh-faced young folk. The boys all slicked back hair, blue jeans and campus jackets. The girls dime-store ponytails, tight sweaters, flared skirts and bobby socks, and all about sweet little 16. The front door of the Laurels opened for a final time, and a slip of paper was thrust into the Murphy's hand. "And don't come back." "Thank you." Cornelius studied the slip of paper. He studied his shoes, the closed front door, the sky, and then he stooped, plucked up the karaoke crate, tramped down the garden path, through the sunray gateway, across the pavement, and out into the road. The Cadillac's wireless was playing Chuck Berry, and Cornelius had to force his way through the now jiving throng. He flung the crate into the back seat, swung open the driver's door, climbed in, and switched off the wireless. "No," went the crowd. "Dragsville and Ann Heap." Tuppe, who had been gaily popping his fingers and grooving with the chicks, caught sight of the Murphy visage. It was not grinning. "Cornelius," the weenie man tugged at his friend's sleeve. "Something is troubling you. What might it be?" "Jack London has moved. In fact, he moved 30 years ago."
30 years? We've lost him then?"
"No, we have not lost him. I have his new address."
"That's good."
"Not altogether." Cornelius fished out the slip of paper and passed it to Tuppe. Tuppe read it.
"Oh, good,"
said he. "It's my address." Cornelius spoke in a low, doomed voice. "My own house." He thrust the key into the steering column, revved the engine, and prepared to back through the crowd. But the crowd had vanished, and but for two epic travellers and an electric blue eyesore, Sunnyside Road was deserted.